Hey everybody, I'm Joe DeGanzik and this is Smarter Home Life. This is one of our Q&A episodes that I do monthly. This one's a little bit late in the month, and warning, this one is a little bit longer than most because of some longer explanations to some of the questions that came in. And in fact, so many questions are now coming in, the good ones really coming in through email, that this month I didn't even have a chance to take any of them from comments. So the best way to reach me is questions@smarterhomelife.com. The YouTube comment system is a complete mess, and it's difficult to sift through all of them because the way that it works, I tend to miss some of them. So anyways, if you want to get my attention, please send your email in and then I will get back to you. I do try to get back to everybody fairly quickly, but then the best ones tend to show up on these monthly videos. So a little bit longer, and we got a lot of questions and this similar topic of why doesn't this work with that? And anyways, so here we go. An email from Rob W. I'm slowly adding smarter things. Thanks for saying smarter. I think we're going to try and get everyone to start saying smarter home instead of smart home. I'm slowly adding smarter things to my home, starting with the Philips Hue white light starter set. Good deal. I'm an Apple user, and I like the idea of staying with HomeKit devices. Generally, that's a good idea. Although you may still run it, as people have reported and I have talked about on the show, staying with HomeKit, you may run into some limitations depending on what devices they are that you're using. Philips Hue is pretty fantastic and it works with everything, so no worries there. I'm eventually going to be adding smoke detectors and leak detectors, the main reason for adding automation. The main reason for adding automation in the first place. That's true. Sensors really make automation happen. All that magic happens behind the scenes. I know Insteon has a leak detector, which you reviewed. Yes, there are several others out there. If I go that way, it makes sense for me to stick with Insteon switches, but their Pro Hub for HomeKit doesn't play well with sensors. A doesn't work with B. Okay. I've heard that Lutron dimmer switches are good, but now that's adding a different hub. C. I honestly like the look of Insteon better. I agree. The mesh network as opposed to Bluetooth to the hub sounds good, but the Pro Hub has issues. Yes. Any suggestions between Insteon and Lutron? Also, it seems that Amazon's Alexa works really good. For home control, does it work in the same house as HomeKit? Yes. The answer is yes. You can have, I have Siri, the Echo, and Google Home all working at the same time, although some of them are muted because they pick up on like podcasts and TV. But yes, you can have them all work at the same time, but they all may wind up talking to you depending on what happens. Would Siri and Alexa be able to function together or try and use both? Well, that's what I just said. Any suggestions? Thanks, Rob. Okay, that's a tall order, and I need to probably go back to his email just to make sure I'm actually answering things. It is the question of why doesn't A work with B, work with C? The first question he's asking is, actually part of it really is saying, I like these sensors, you know, one of them you reviewed, I want to add more of them, but if I go with the Insteon sensor for leak detection, does it make sense to go with Insteon for everything else? Well, yes and no. Now, here's the main thing. Insteon is an older technology, and when I say old, it's 10 years old. So it came out about the same time that Z-Wave did, and roughly the same time that Zigbee did as well, even though Zigbee doesn't power, I mean, it does power a lot of different devices. Usually they are lighting products like Philips Hue and not LifeX, because that's Wi-Fi. A number of products use Zigbee control, and a whole ton of products use Z-Wave. So Insteon's been around for a long time. It's been a very proven technology. It works through your power lines, the physical power lines, and also through wireless. And so if the signal doesn't get through one way, it'll send it the other way. Actually, it broadcasts both. It's a mesh network, which means as you add Insteon devices, it gets better. The controllers that they have, Insteon's done a pretty good job. I love it, so I don't want to knock them, but I'll say they've done a pretty good job with their hub. They're kind of they're sort of hamstrung by Apple in terms of what the hub Pro can do in terms of it's not compatible with their sensors, it's not compatible with one or two other things that Insteon makes because of the way that Apple wants control, so that it'll only a HomeKit based hub device can only control certain types of products. That's what Apple says. And so until Apple relaxes those standards or Insteon kind of comes up with a way around it, you're stuck in that regard. So now the question, of course, that everyone has is, well, all right, well, why would I ever buy Insteon if I can't use it with HomeKit? Well, even if you're in the Apple ecosystem, and as I've talked about before, HomeKit is great, but it could be better. If you want to do a lot with home automation, especially getting into things like sensors, HomeKit is not always the way to go because you can only do certain things. I have demonstrated the limitations of it on numerous videos, including a little bit on the recent, I'm pointing to the thing above me, which is the ceiling fan controller video. And I will actually go into it because I kind of recorded these segments out of order. I will be going into it in another question in this episode about some of the limitations of HomeKit. But that doesn't answer your question, so let me actually do that. Insteon gives you the advantage of, for me, I think it has better communication because it's got those two different ways of communicating. Insteon also beats pretty much almost all of the other dimmer systems, including Lutron's Casita system, which is HomeKit compatible and compatible with the Amazon Echo. Insteon gives you those fade rates, which is, going from one brightness to another. You can program them for a few seconds, for 9 minutes. You can do a lot more, I think, with Insteon's devices, especially for the lighting side. For controlling switches and outlets, you can do that with anything, practically. But for me, as part of my, I guess it is at this point, my profession is talking to people on YouTube about this stuff as a lighting specialist. I love Insteon for that reason. You can do lighting control with just about anything. You can do it with SmartThings devices and Z-Wave devices, but you're not going to get those really nice, slow fade rates. And different devices may not do those fade rates as smoothly as Insteon does. That's a little bit why I'm a little bit partial to Insteon, but that's not the reason for everybody. So if you want to stay within the HomeKit world, Fibaro or Fibado, I still don't know what the pronunciation is, just released a HomeKit, a few different HomeKit products, including a leak detector for HomeKit. It's the first one ever by any company. So that may solve your issue. HomeKit allows you to integrate multiple devices from multiple platforms right in through the Home app or through any HomeKit compatible app from a manufacturer or the original Home app made by a third party. So that might be a solution for you. The Lutron, there's nothing specifically wrong with the Lutron hub if we go kind of Lutron to Insteon. Lutron's devices, and again, it's surprising for Lutron being a major player in the lighting industry and the lighting control industry, but for their more consumer level hub, which is the Casita hub, and the consumer level dimmers, they don't allow fade rates, which blows my mind. But part of it may be due to the fact that even with HomeKit, you can't set a fade rate because HomeKit has to say what's the basic functions of all of these devices, and that's what we're going to give you. We're not going to give you an additional option that only works with one type of device. So it's sort of like the lowest common denominator effect. So that may be part of it. I don't know that they can upgrade that in the future with a software update. The Casita hub for HomeKit has been out since, well, it's been out for 1.5 years and they haven't changed it. So I don't know what's up with that. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with Lutron. I don't want to say anything bad about them. They are a great industry player in the lighting world. I've used and tested the Lutron hub, but again, for me, as I'll say later in this video, it doesn't do me any good. I can't link it back to my main home automation control center, and so I use it for demos, to be honest. So basically, that's your choice. If you go with Insteon, right now, the app that goes along with the Insteon Hub Pro does not seem to work on iOS 10. So that's a big stopping point for everybody at that point. If it doesn't work with the current version of iOS, and I'm not sure when they're going to fix it. I love Insteon, but they have fallen a little bit behind the times in certain areas, and I do hope that they catch up because they do make outstanding products. They really, really do. So I hope this kind of answers your question. On the leak detector, you may want to just go with the new one that just came out. I'll place a link to it in the show notes. And I did a kind of a first look article that's on smarterhomelife.com right now. And it's also on our list of, our very extensive list of HomeKit compatible devices, which is also on smarterhomelife.com. So I hope that kind of gives you the information. You may just want to kind of put everything together separately. Some devices like the Lutron Hub, but not the Insteon Hub Pro, some devices that are HomeKit compatible are also compatible with other systems, specifically Philips Hue, things like the Lutron Hub, so you could get Amazon to work with that. And then technically, we're assuming that most of all the things that are going to work with the Amazon Echo will ultimately wind up working with the Google Home as it continues to expand its ecosystem, which has already started happening in the past 2 weeks. So in 2017, I expect in the first few months, maybe the first 3 or 4 months, at least in the first 6 months of the year, we should see the Amazon Echo and the Google Home come pretty much close to being almost equal in certain regards. So I hope that's kind of, again, a long-winded answer, but I hope that gives you some more insight into it. Love Insteon, but right now they've got HomeKit challenges. The next question technically started in October, but it kind of continued into November, so I'm going to throw it in here. And I may have actually answered it partially on the Q&A for October. This is from Clay W., who's also one of our Patreon contributors, so thank you, Clay, for supporting the show. I'll have more on Patreon in just a moment. I just installed a Schlage Connect lock on my front door. Model number, I'm not going to say it all. It's a Z-Wave enabled lock. Schlage also makes another version of their locks, a few of their locks that are compatible with HomeKit. I think it's the Schlage Sense. I got it to connect with my Wink Hub just fine. And he initially said that he was surprised the Wink Hub could not lock or unlock it, and then he later sort of retracted that, and it actually does. He was tapping instead of swiping. My Amazon Echo recognizes lots of other things on the Wink Hub, but the lock isn't recognized. I can't find a specific Echo skill for Schlage. Is there a way to make this work with the Echo? Again, another thing of A doesn't work with C, but it might work with B. This is where, and I've talked about it before, and some of you have tried it out and you found that it's not quite perfect. There's nothing that's not quite perfect right now, unless you do kind of what I do, which is the old school method of having a dedicated device or software running on a computer, like a PC or a Mac, that has a whole bunch of plugins that can control just about everything directly. But that's for another show. For Clay's question, and which I already answered through email, the answer is something like Yonomi, or there's another app that I haven't tried out yet called Stringify, also for iOS, although Yonomi works on both iOS and Android. Both of those apps are automators. They're ways of getting different devices that normally wouldn't work with each other to connect and do things, because Yonomi is almost like HomeKit in a way. HomeKit likes to bridge devices together that don't know about each other and normally wouldn't work together, but through a software layer on top of it, you can make that happen. And that's what Yonomi does, but it includes, I think it's like almost 50 devices at this point across a wide spectrum, from locks to lights to sensors and even Sonos speakers. You can even have Yonomi actually do text-to-speech through Sonos speaker systems. And I hope they make it to where you can do something like that with like a Chromecast audio, because then you could upgrade your existing speakers. But anyways, Yonomi is the answer that I ultimately kind of gave him, and that's what he's using to do that, and probably a couple other things now. Yonomi, it's a free app. I've done an entire video on it. I've done an interview with their CEO. And those are available in the YouTube library, and I'll throw links to those in the description as well. Yonomi will allow you to do things like have the Echo actually control something that's not supposed to. by default. Like a few months ago, August announced that they were the first smart lock to be compatible directly with the Amazon Echo. But the only thing you can do is check the status and lock it. You cannot unlock it. Now, there is a little bit of a safety problem with having a lock tied into a listening device that's in your home. Because technically, I guess if you screamed loud enough through the door, and if the Echo or the Google Home was close enough to it, since neither of those devices does voice print, like Siri now, depending on the iPhone that you're on, will actually be tailored to your voice and your voice alone, which is a more secure. It's not perfect still, because I'm sure you could figure out a way around it, but the Echo and the Google Home do not do any kind of voice identification. They just do voice recognition. So that's probably why that Amazon has shied away from doing an unlock command. And they obviously don't work directly with the Schlage, but Yonomi does. So that's the answer to that question. That's what I suggest when you run into a problem that you want A to work with B to work with C, but yet they don't. There's three other options. One is what I do, which is not for most people, which is a lot of programming work. B is something like Yonomi or possibly this Stringify. Stringify is only on iOS, and I haven't fully reviewed it or taken a look at it yet. And then the other option is something like IFTTT, which is a little more clunky because it's going out to the cloud. Yonomi, if there is a local device, like a Philips Hue light that actually can run locally without going to the cloud first and coming back, it will try to use that local connection. IFTTT, because it's completely cloud-based and it's not really an app that's actually running. It is an app that's running, but it's really a web service. It always has to go out and come back. So there is some delay with IFTTT to some extent. So those are some options to get A to work with B to work with C. But even with those, you still may run into a wall where some of those things just don't work together quite right, or they don't work. They may work together, but not exactly the way that you want them to. So that's the answer to that one. And so now, speaking of the Patreon stuff, Clay has been one of our contributors for a while. But as we are in the holiday season, if I scroll up or down here and I get to the right, here we are. As we are in the holiday season, I'm reusing like the set piece from the previous video, from the what should you do with the new gift that you just got if it's a connected thing. We're in the holiday season. I'm feeling that I really want to say thank you to a special group of people who helped to make the show possible, who helped to make a lot of things possible by contributing directly. And it helps to balance things out. Like, I actually can't make a living yet doing this show full time. So I have to do other things, and that's why sometimes you'll see delays between episodes. You won't see maybe not every single episode is perfectly together. Some of them are more rushed than others. I would love it if I could work on this full time, but it's a slow growth in terms of number of views and whatnot. So if we had everyone watching this video contribute through Patreon, probably that would be solved, and I could actually do this full time. And there are rewards other than having your name read off on these videos. There are other rewards if you would be so kind to contribute. And I say this because there, as I've said so far, I get the emails from you, and many of you say, I love your videos, I love what you do, you're so passionate, you're so fantastic. Thank you so much. And if you really love it, you could contribute at, say, $1 per month. And you can actually do that. Patreon has PayPal tied into it, so it's very, very easy. I think everyone has PayPal, don't they? It's a very easy thing. So let me say, before I run too much into time, Steve B, Kelvin C, Patrick B, Patrick M, Douglas L, I'm leaving off the last names to protect the innocent, Steve R, Richard B, Justin H, Ray K, Sean, Orlando M, Casey B, John S, Clay W, and Robert W, and two more specifically, Michael D, who has contributed the most out of any of our of the Patreon contributors. And Jim J, who's contributed the longest for over a year and a half. I couldn't do it without you guys. You make up part of the budget. I would, like I said, I would love to be able to do this full time. If we met our first goal on Patreon, I probably could actually do this full time, and it would improve the show and it would grow the show's numbers and the quality of episodes coming out. Your Patreon contributions pay for everything in the show's budget, and also because the show is a certain portion of how I make a living, it pays to kind of keep the lights on. The next question comes from Boyd P, and he writes, "Hey Joe, before I kick off, I love your channel and I love how passionate you are in what you do." Thank you very much. It's very refreshing to see your profession. It's very refreshing to see you take your profession and make it accessible, but also to show a serious and important side. And he's talking about the DYN attack, the IoT security video that I did about, I think, almost 2 months ago. So thank you so much for that. It's these kind words and emails like this and many others that I get multiple times a week, almost daily now, that I get from people all across the planet. And I read them in the morning. I don't always get back to you right away. I try to get back to you within a few days or a week or so. And it keeps me going. It keeps me making these videos, and I'm glad I'm having an impact. And thank you so much for your kind words. So Elgato seems to be featured a lot on your channel, partially because they sent us a few devices to review. Thank you to Elgato, and full disclosure, they sent those for free. So for testing and review purposes, of course. And I must admit that mostly due to your clear videos about the products, they're on my Christmas wish list. So he wrote this a few weeks ago, so at this point when I'm recording this, Christmas hasn't happened yet, so hopefully they did get on your list and you're actually going to get them. This video should come out on Monday the 26th, the day after Christmas. One thing I think would be really interesting to see with all of your smarter home products, thank you for actually using the smarter home name and not smart home, is how your home app looks. He's referring to the Apple Home app that was introduced in iOS 10. I've not been able to find a good screenshot or video detailing how temperature gets reported in there, or how it looks when you use the weather sensor in the Home app. He's referring to the Elgato weather sensor, the Eve weather sensor. Keep up the nice videos, and thanks for all your information. And again, thank you, and I will definitely keep up with the videos. So HomeKit for me is an add-on. Years ago, I was kind of all in on this concept of doing voice control, and this was way before HomeKit, Siri, Amazon's Echo devices, Google's Assistant, any of this cloud stuff. It was old-fashioned software that you would put on a PC, hook the sound card to an array of microphones, install them throughout your house, walk through your house, and pretend you're on some kind of sci-fi series and just talk to the house. Now, of course, you can do this by buying these individual devices, but because of ecosystems and who works with what, you don't always get the ability to control things the way that you want to. So, at least for me, and I almost at this point sound old-fashioned because I want to do it my way and I don't want to do it the way that all these companies want me to do it. But nonetheless, HomeKit for me, I use it sparingly. I use Siri voice control sparingly because for me it works about 70% of the time, which isn't good enough for me. And I get control of some of my devices because I really only want control over voice over some of them. Now, sometimes I feel like, well, maybe I should enable HomeKit across more things. And you're asking me, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you just enable HomeKit on more things? Because my setup is complicated. So let me jump over to the Home app, which doesn't have much in it. And you're going to look at this now, and you're going to say, well, there's not really much going on. And I don't, I have one favorite scene, which was for the demo of the ceiling fan, which did work. If you watch that video, even though it was kind of split up a little bit with the Insteon, the fan link, the fan controller. Even though I kind of split it up and had to do an edit point, the actual rule that I established, the automation did actually work. But it doesn't work the way I want it to because, well, I'll go into that in a second. So you're going to see at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see the thermostat. Now this is a Nest thermostat. Now let me say this right into the camera so that there's no confusion. The Nest thermostat does not work with HomeKit. Repeat after me. The Nest thermostat does not work with HomeKit, okay? The only reason you see it on this screen is because there is technology running on the Mac, which is called Indigo. It's an Indigo server, server-based home automation that has all kinds of plugins for every, I guess not every single one, but many different home automation systems and connected devices, and there's so much that you can do with Indigo if you want to be a little bit more advanced. And if you are in the Mac world, if you want to do a lot, I highly suggest it or another kind of more old-fashioned device like an ISY controller, because you can do a lot with it. And these newer systems and even SmartThings and the Wink Hub and so forth are just a little bit hamstrung. They're just a little bit limited to what you can really do. I say easily, but I come from a developer background, and so I can program a lot of things to have happen that most people would say, I don't even know how to do that. So that's besides the point. The Nest is tied in through Indigo. HomeKit is tied in through Indigo through a HomeKit emulator that is not supported by Apple. It is not sanctioned by them at all. They probably don't want anyone to be using it, but it does exist. It works. It's called HomeBridge, and it can bridge HomeKit to a number of different systems. So usually on the Mac platform. I don't think you're going to get it to work on the PC, but maybe. So you're also seeing temperature being reported, as you talked about here at the top, the backyard. The Eve weather sensor is out inside of a tree in the backyard. If I long press on it, I get 58 degrees. Reason being is because the Eve sensors will report different, like the air quality for the Eve room, which is back there, but it's not in the shot, and temperature and humidity. If I jump over to, say, the office, you'll see all three of them because they show up as three different icons. I don't know why Apple does it this way, but it just makes one accessory into multiple accessories. But again, if I long press on it, I don't get anything really other than the same thing I just was seeing. Here's the, it gives you a little bit more details perhaps, but not really anything useful. The other challenge with this, and it's the same for the weather sensor, and then you can see also that the front door, which is also out of the shot, has the state of it. The sensor is in the closed state. But there's not that much you can do with this in the Apple Home app, because under automations, if I went to create a new automation, sensors are kind of disabled because I don't have any sensors that Apple considers sensors, which is stupid. I think they're classifying them as motion sensors, or maybe, I still don't know if it's Fibaro or if it's Fibaro. I'm going to stick with Fibaro for now. Fibaro just introduced a HomeKit water leak or flood sensor, which is the first of its kind for HomeKit. That's probably also something that would trigger this, but I don't know why else that I can't do something with the weather sensors and the Eve, the room sensor. It's just weird. So you can, I'm trying to think, if I do something like this, yeah, you can't. There's just, Apple wants you to do certain things and not other things. So if you live completely in the Apple world and you don't use any of the other apps for HomeKit, you're not going to be doing a whole lot, or you're not going to do a whole lot that's fun. So you can go to another app, such as the Eve app, which is which I have handy, but it's what comes with, or they suggest to you use it to set up the Eve devices, and then you can go in and you can create the rules. I'm not going to go through this whole process because I did it on the fan controller video, of setting a temperature range and saying I want the fan to be different speeds depending on different room temperatures. Very easy to do. but it doesn't really meet all of my needs either, because there's no way that I can tell this to combine the state of the sensors in terms of I want a certain temperature range, but I only want it when I'm home, like when I'm physically here. There's no way to do that, at least within HomeKit, it seems right now. There is another home app made by someone else. It's not 99 cents. I think it's $10 or $15. Don't quote me on that. That you may be able to combine things, but the Eve app and the iDevices app, which are both free, you can use them whether you have those devices from those manufacturers or not. They will actually show you. If I go in here and not make a fool out of myself in terms of what's here, there's the Office. You'll see the Great Room Office lamp, which is coming in through Indigo. Because I don't have everything enabled through Indigo, you'll see that it's turned off right now, so it's actually seeing that in this app, even though the app is from Eve, it's actually seeing all the HomeKit devices. And anyway, so there are more things that you can do outside of Apple's Home app, and I just, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it would take too long. I tend to live in the Indigo app for iOS because I can do a lot more, because I've customized it on the back end, and I'm going to be showing that off in 2017. I promise. I know I've been promising that for months. We're going to hopefully shift this, the focus of the channel a little bit more towards informational videos and a little bit more balanced between the product reviews and the informational videos. When I started this channel, it was actually not to make product videos. It was actually to provide more information. But now I'm kind of caught a little bit in the product review cycle, and I've got to do that because these videos are the more informational, and a lot of people tended to watch these as well. But the product videos bring people to the channel. They're new and sexy and shiny and so forth. So it's a mix of both. So anyways, to answer your question, that's how temperature is reported. It doesn't really do much in this app, but you can do more with the other apps. I'm hoping that Apple continues to, over time, they just introduced the push notifications for things such as the sensors, which actually does work well, but you can't turn it off automatically if you're at home. I live in a very small home. It doesn't do me any good to have notifications about the front door opening if I'm already here, but it could be for other people. So let's move on from that. I hope that kind of answers the question. Like I said, I don't use the Home app for all that much. I open it infrequently because it's an add-on. I use it more for these demos than I use it for anything in actually real life. But that may change as things get better and as I come up with new ideas on how to better integrate things and make things work. So thank you again for your email, your kind words, and let's move on to the next one. Here's the next question from Sam V. It's kind of a long one, so I'm going to try to paraphrase this a little bit. First of all, thank you for your videos. I really enjoy them. Thank you so much. Here are my questions. The OnHub, Google OnHub and Wi-Fi spec that they have Zigbee connectivity. This is actually 802.15.4, which is Zigbee, but it's also it's actually just another IEEE wireless spec basically, and Zigbee is that, but it's also a few other things. Does that mean that they can control Philips Hue devices without the Philips Hue bridge? Well, the Google Wi-Fi, and I just checked this to verify it, does not have, according to Google's own specs, doesn't have Zigbee or the 802.15.4 radio on board. The OnHub does, and the OnHub device does have the ability, if you connect to a special URL, it will be able to give you a web interface on anything in your local network at home to control Philips Hue. But you need the Philips Hue bridge. You need something because the devices really are, lighting devices are specialty devices, and they have to be paired with something initially. And I don't know that they can actually be paired directly with the Google OnHub, and I don't know that you would want to. Lighting is sort of a special thing, even though LifeX has kind of made it kind of an art form to do lighting with Wi-Fi by itself. But for Zigbee-based devices, they kind of have to be paired to some sort of a hub, and I don't believe that the OnHub is going to function necessarily as a control hub, at least not yet. Google really hasn't done that much with the On Hub. There hasn't been that much news about what it really is supposed to be doing other than providing internet and maybe some Zigbee control. If you ask me, the way that Google throws things out there and then forgets about them, I don't really expect the On Hub to survive the next year. I expect that Google will kill it off and basically say that the Google Wi-Fi little pucks that they introduced around the same time as the Google Home went on sale, I think that's going to supersede the On Hub, and the On Hub was another grand experiment that went nowhere. But I could be completely wrong, so take that there. The second part of Sam's question has to do with Philips Hue lighting and when your internet goes offline. But this is, I think, a question that many people have in terms of devices or hubs that are connected to your Wi-Fi router somehow, and you want to control those devices that are on that hub, or any other devices really that use Wi-Fi or something like that, through switches or through apps on your smartphone, and what happens when your internet goes out. Well, if the device is made correctly, that it will primarily use your local networking first, and it doesn't have to go out to the cloud or to the internet for something, which disqualifies things like the Amazon Echo and the Google Home, and for the most part Siri as well. If your internet's out, those devices are not going to work. But things like lighting, and they're designed like this on purpose, things like lighting, Philips Hue, even the LIFX bulbs, they operate on your local network first before having to go outbound to do something on the internet. And generally they're only going to do that if you are connecting to them remotely when you're away from home. So if your internet goes out, there's no problem in actually using those products, even from your smartphone, because your smartphone is still connected to your Wi-Fi. Now, if you don't have Wi-Fi, well, you're in trouble because you can't use those devices anyways. You have to have a Wi-Fi router in general to use things like Philips Hue, LIFX, or practically any other Wi-Fi based home automation device that is sold nowadays that does require some kind of control. That's not something else that's tied into another hub. And everything in the Philips Hue world uses Zigbee to talk to the Philips Hue bridge. So once you're using, so say you're actually using a Philips Hue dimmer switch or a Hue tap or something like that, or even the Hue motion sensor, all of that technology stays within the hub, never goes out to the internet, unless, again, of course, you have that hub or bridge tied into a Philips Hue kind of cloud account that then you can access and get the status of your lights through the Philips Hue app or other services and so forth. Again, your Amazon Echo wouldn't be able to control the Philips Hue lighting when the internet's out, because the Echo needs that voice control to work across the internet. So just a few things to think about. But that's the best answer I've got. So again, thank you for your question. And the last question, which is a few questions, an email from Devin. And I'll try to paraphrase this a little bit. I have watched many of your videos and hope you have some time to answer a few questions for me. Well, here we go. Thank you for writing in. Currently, I just have 3 Z-Wave switches hooked up to my ADT Pulse system, a security system. And many of these newer security systems like the ADT Pulse are coming now with home automation technology built in. So these industries are kind of starting to merge a little bit. You can do home automation with security systems, and you can do some security with home automation systems now. After researching, I found that ADT Pulse can't connect to the Echo or to HomeKit or Google Home. He's correct, at least for now. So I figured the only main benefit to keep the ADT Pulse is because he gets the security benefit, and the call center and remote monitoring, and he's correct. I was thinking of going the route of SmartThings with Google Home and get devices that would work with the SmartThings hub, of course. I've learned that you need the Philips Hue bridge to connect the lights to the SmartThings hub. Is this true? For the most part, this is true. For full functionality for Philips Hue devices, you really need the Philips Hue bridge. There have been some people on the various forums, and I've looked at this on SmartThings, who have been able to get Philips Hue individual lighting and other Zigbee-based lighting to connect directly with the SmartThings hub, but you get limited functionality and potentially unpredictable results every time SmartThings may issue an update to the hub that might break that. So it's best to just get the Philips Hue bridge. So he continues now. Also, I have iOS devices, so I can do HomeKit, and I really want to know what reason there is to go with the SmartThings when I could just buy HomeKit compatible devices. The main things I would want is voice control when I'm at home and the ability to access devices when I am not at home. Well, thanks, Devin, for your great questions. Again, do you sense the theme? Like October and November are both, does A work with B, work with C? He's saying, really, why would I go with HomeKit versus something like SmartThings? Well, there's two reasons. Number one, well, really, okay, two things. Number one, HomeKit is like the tech industry darling right now because it's continuing to develop. It's Apple. It's getting a little bit more attention from everybody. SmartThings is still cool. It's, was purchased by Samsung about a year ago. They introduced the new hub about a year and a half ago. It's still really great, and it does a lot, and it now does work with, as I've demoed it here on Smarter Home Life, does work with the Google Home. And all of these things are going to get better over time. Someone comes out with a hub, they come out with a device, as long as they're updatable via firmware, they're going to get better over time. Same thing goes with Apple's HomeKit. If you're in the iOS ecosystem, it might make sense to go with HomeKit, but as I've talked about on the show, HomeKit doesn't do everything, and it certainly doesn't do everything that SmartThings can do. SmartThings, among the new and sexy systems out there, does have the ability to do some more customization if you want to get in and write some code, which you may not want to do. But its capabilities do exceed HomeKit because of the way that it's set up. HomeKit is really set up to be a very basic home automation system. There are some apps like the Home app that is not made by Apple that allow you to do some more things than with the basic Home app that Apple has. But if you really like Siri and if you really like iOS, then maybe HomeKit could be for you. If you don't care, and maybe you're more in on the Google ecosystem and you just have an iOS device or a few devices, then the Google Home plus Samsung route may be for you. Now, Samsung bought Viv. Viv was a company that was started by the founders of Siri, and they put out some demos earlier this year that were very, very, very impressive in terms of automation and voice recognition and the way it should work. Now, Samsung bought Viv, so we're expecting that they will be doing something pretty big with Viv and voice control, and probably integrating it somehow, maybe into a Echo-like device sometime in 2017. So we'll be on the lookout for news from Samsung on that. So that's another reason that maybe you need to go the SmartThings route. But it comes down to preference. You can do more with SmartThings, but you may be able to do a lot more with HomeKit in the next year too. Only time will tell. So that is it for, I think, the longest Q&A episode ever. It may have been an hour or 45 minutes, I'm not sure, because this is recorded in kind of bits and pieces and then put together. So thank you again for emailing in your questions. Thank you for your support, your letters of I love your videos and so forth. If you really love the channel, please think about becoming a contributor on Patreon, patreon.com/smarterhomelife. And otherwise, again, to get my attention and to email in your questions that I'll get back to you relatively quickly, and then the best ones go on these shows, is questions@smarterhomelife.com. And that's it. We're, at least when you're watching this in the first couple days after its release, we're at the end of the holiday season. So I will wish you a happy holidays for the rest of the year, and hope that you have a safe and happy new year as we start 2017. I'll be up in Las Vegas covering CES for the first time, actually at the show. I'll be part of a smart home discussion panel by Zmodo, who is introducing a bunch of new home automation products. So I'm excited for a lot of cool things. So 2017 should start really, really, really awesome for Smarter Home Life and tech in general, with the big show up in Las Vegas. So other than that, more videos coming out, more product reviews, and more informational videos here on Smarter Home Life. I'm Jody Gancic. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe so you get all of our videos if you're not already subscribed, and share with your friends. Make your home a little bit smarter every single day. I'll see you next time.